The real news yesterday came late in the evening, and that was the victory on the Supreme Court of Wisconsin. The judge there, Janet Protasiewicz. I think I'm pronouncing her name right. Protasiewicz. It's Polish, hard for me to figure out the W's and C's and shit. But she beat the piss out of this neo-Nazi state Supreme Court Justice Dan Kelly. Beat him by, 11 points? Just handed him his ass on a silver platter. Thank goodness. Thank goodness. Now, this is in a state, Wisconsin, that has been, if not the birthplace, certainly a breeding ground for incredibly progressive policies, as well as incredibly neo-Nazi policies. It's a dichotomy, if ever one existed, the state of Wisconsin politically. And it's so evenly divided now between the Christian fascists and normal people that even a 1 or 2 point margin in an election is considered a resounding victory. So yesterday, Tuesday, the voters in Wisconsin turned out in droves to deliver what is being called at the Washington Post, Jennifer Rubin calls it, an unmistakable blow to right-wing judges and politicians who have been pushing these forced birth laws, these hyper-gerrymandering rearrangements of the state, voter suppression, union busting, all of the neo-Nazi shit that comes right out of the Mein Kampf playbook. These fascist judges and politicians in Wisconsin have been doing. Well, guess what? It's over. In that state, anyway. Because her election to the state Supreme Court gives liberal judges, if you want to call them liberal, I call them progressive, a 43 majority now on the state Supreme Court. And that is an incredible shift because there's all sorts of cases that are coming before the Wisconsin Supreme Court that are going to have national implications. But it's a dramatic shift for a court that recently had handed one kick in the groin to progressives and one victory after another to these Christian fascists and their organizations in Wisconsin. Now, excuse me, according to Jennifer Rubin of the Washington Post, and I didn't follow the race that much, that closely, I knew it was a very important race between a progressive, i.e. a normal person, and a white male Christian Nazi. That's about as far as I knew. But the race turned primarily on two issues. An abortion ban that was written in 1849. 1849 by, it was triggered by the Supreme Court's Roe v. Wade decision last year, the repeal of Roe v. Wade. The ban was written in 1849, but, 50 years ago when the Supreme Court said that women had a right to privacy, and that included the right to control her own reproductive organs, for God's sake, that nullified the ban from 1849 when Roe v. Wade was overturned this past summer, whenever it was, past fall. I forget. That reinstated the 1849 ban. So now it's gone. And it also, the race turned on the other issue, was this insane Nazi gerrymandering plan. Now, the gerrymandering plan, as has been reported, was possibly the most extreme attempt to manipulate how people in Wisconsin sent representatives to Washington. I mean, more so than any other state. It turned a 50-50 state, pretty much, 50-50, Republican-Democrat, into a 6 Republicans, 2 Democrats advantage in congressional seats. 6-2. This is what the son of a bitches have done, these Christian fascists, in so many states in the country. Have twisted and gerrymandered the state. Ohio has done it. Georgia has done it. Michigan attempted to do it. Just on and on and on. Pennsylvania attempted to do it. And it's up to the voters to throw these bastards out. And it appears that maybe, possibly, finally, that's beginning to happen. Now, the Wisconsin Supreme Court race, the one that Janet Protasiewicz won yesterday over this Dan Kelly asshole, that particular race, given the issues involved, had broken all spending records for judicial races. Maybe you heard that. Tens of millions of dollars raised and spent by both candidates, and money raised by third-party groups. Now, yes, we should keep money the hell out of politics, but it has to be a mutual keep the hell out of politics thing. The Christian fascists in this country have just bottomless pits of money. They really do. That's what always cracks me up when you hear that George Soros might have contributed $1 million in a certain Democratic primary or something. Ooh, the Jew kicked in $1 million. Ooh, oh my goodness. Well, that could only mean one thing. The Jews are coming. The Jews are coming. When in fact, in reality, in the real world, it is the Christian fascist organizations in this country that are destroying democracy, that contribute so much money. Jews, schmooze. Muslims, bullshit. Christian fascists are doing it over, and then they try to lay it off on George Soros. Oh my God. One Hungarian Jew who is 94, 93 years old? And he's a billionaire. Ooh. But all of a sudden, George Soros, how many times have you heard his name? You don't know what he looks like. Neither do I. You don't know what businesses in which he made his money. Neither do I. You don't know the candidates he's backed. Neither do I. But what we do know is he has become an emblematic anti-Semitic monster who is destroying Donald Trump and everything justifiable and righteous and Christian in this country. OMFG. The Christian fascists are so effed up. I mean, they really are. So all of this rests on George Soros, huh? I thought it was an international scheme of liberals and unions and progressives and women and gays and a few Jews and all kinds of people who are trying to turn America into a third world country. When you look at it, that is precisely what Trump tried to do. What do you call Hungary? Do you call that a third world country? You might. What do you call Russia? Oh, Jesus, please. There's so many countries where the fascists have taken over, where everything is going right down the commode. But I digress. Where was I? The race in Wisconsin. As Jennifer pointed out, the political pundits who thought, Trump's indictment would set off some sort of backlash that would benefit this fascist bastard in Wisconsin, Dan Kelly, were engaged in some real fairy tale wishful thinking, right? Wisconsin voters are savvy enough to understand that the Orange Nazis' legal bullshit have nothing whatsoever to do with their state courts. But that effort was made. The effort was made that if you vote for Janet Protasiewicz, you're voting to destroy Donald Trump and therefore destroy America. You got to vote for Dan Kelly. Thank Donald Trump. Oh, Jesus. In that state, the Democratic State Party chairman, a guy named Ben Wickler, apparently mounted a mammoth turn out the vote operation. And he told the Washington Post yesterday, quote, The GOP machine thought they had broken Wisconsin's democracy enough that they could rip away fundamental rights from half the population and never suffer the consequences. Well, tonight, an enraged electorate, he went on, proved them wrong. In the state that tips the country, the abortion ruling by the Supreme Court, the crowning achievement of the far right in this country, tonight you'll see its undoing, end quote. Yeah, that's true. And Jennifer adds this: after years of right-wing judges dissembling about the respect for precedent and their open-mindedness, there's something refreshing about progressive judges going to voters and telling them their values. Surely voters don't prefer nominees dissembling under oath as members and former members of Congress have done and have accused U.S. Supreme Court Justice Kavanaugh and Gorsuch of doing. But that's the point. Scum, bastards like Sammy the Fish Alito, or the drunk Kavanaugh, or the lying little sleazebag Neil Gorsuch, of course they're going to lie. Of course they are, in order to get a seat on the Supreme Court. Because they're allowed to lie. They have a greater agenda. They have an agenda that they know is the agenda that the Christian God wants. So it's okay to lie. They're not bearing false witness. They're not violating one of the commandments. They're just doing whatever is necessary in order, in some instances, to protect the life of the unborn babies, the little babies, the ones that are smaller than your little fingernail, the little clot of undifferentiated cells, the babies, and so on and so forth. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. You know, the Progressive Voices Network brings you commercial-free commentary from today's leading progressive radio hosts and pundits, like me, Mike Malloy, 24 hours a day. I'm not your typical old guy from the 80s or the 90s talk radio host, and Progressive Voices is not your typical talk radio network. It's a listener-supported nonprofit with no corporate control whatsoever over our broadcast. So hosts like me, Mike Malloy, are free to rant and scream and carry on about whatever we like. We're often controversial, but we're never boring. Weeknights, 9 p.m. in the East, 6 p.m. in the West on the Progressive Voices Network. Always progressive, always on. I'm Mike Malloy. Keep it lit.